立法會主席。
The President. Good morning. We will continue to deal with the resolution on energy efficiency labeling of products. Ordinance. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, I speak in support of the Energy Efficiency Labeling of Products Ordinance Amendment of Schedule 1, Order 2017. It was first fully implemented in 2009, and has been 8 years on. And during those 8 years, well, at the outset, it covered only room air conditioners, cooling capacity not exceeding 7.5 kilowatts, refrigerating appliances, total storage not exceeding 500 liters and CFLs, and then the products were extended to cover washing machines and dehumidifiers. And in the third phase, the government proposed that televisions, storage type, electricity, water heaters, induction cookers, room air temperatures of reverse cycle type, and washing machines be also covered as well. There are two key observations here. The energy efficiency labeling of products law seeks to enable consumers to understand the energy efficiency of products, and so that they can choose the right product and cut down on carbon emission and carbon footprint. And that will alleviate the pressure on global warming. And that is the basic objective. It is unfortunate that from 2009 up to now, we have been proceeding very slowly. The administration said that the slow pace is because the government has to identify the right instruments and the right standards to apply to different home appliances. So that's part of it. But as we all know, as products developed in the past 8 to 9 years, there are indeed more electric products which are being sold, and they consume energy. And the members of the public don't know about them too much. A special type of induction cooker, and also heaters and blankets and so on, electric blankets and so on, they come with certain energy consumption. But I may not be an expert in the field, but I think it's just a matter of mathematics or calculations. And the formula would be like the energy effectiveness divided by the energy consumption. So should we be speeding up in our efforts so that more products can be covered under the labeling scheme? Consumers will then know about such information, and they can help in reducing carbon emission and carbon footprint. How come that the pace is so slow? And why are such standards being formulated so slowly? The Consumer Council has released the latest report stating that there is another problem with the energy label. Maybe for the same grade of product, grade 1 product, the electricity run-up of the various products can vary. And as a result, consumers don't find that too desirable. Should the standards be readjusted to enable members of the public to avoid misunderstanding in the choice of products. And by doing that, the manufacturers will be incentivized more to upgrade their products, and they would not be there just to meet the bare minimum standards. That will have a positive effect on the market, and the product developers can be more proactive in dealing with the issue. There can be a major room for improvement in the system, and I think the government must work harder on that. If they allow the pace to be too slow, so slow, I have reason then to believe that maybe that is a result of the bureaucracy of the government. And they are always lagging behind the times, and they are not being proactive enough, and they have not been proactive in dealing with the global warming issue. That has not been put on the agenda, I suspect. So there are some elements of bureaucracy that we have observed here. I'm still minded today about that. When we talk about energy efficiency, we want to raise the awareness of the members of the public and the manufacturers of products. But then the government seems not to be attaching enough importance to the issue. When we talk about the lighting system, of the replacement of the lighting system at Kai-tak Tunnel, we have a lot of debates on that. Both the pro-establishment and pro-democracy camps members have asked the government, you are going to procure the lighting system in 2019, and which will be commissioned in 2020. But then the government is not willing to undertake that. In the tender documents, most updated standards, the LED standards, will be specified, and they are just specifying T5 to T8 standards. So the government gives the public the impression that they are not being very proactive in dealing with the issue. We are going to replace the lighting system in the tunnels, and we are spending some $80 million. But what we are getting is that we will be only saving 2% of the electricity in terms of energy efficiency. So how can you tell the public you're determined to do the best job? So from this incident of installation of lighting system in Kai-tak Tunnel, we will query how much efforts the government is willing to devote into this. Or is it the case that within the internal structure of the government there are so many constraints among the government departments, and they all have their own different considerations for the EMSD? They would like to maintain the status quo, and they would like to use that standard for tendering. In fact, changes in the products are very drastic, and maybe we are talking about a next generation product in 3 years' time. And several years ago, we would not have imagined that LED products can come in such wide array and carry such high efficiency. So how come that the government is not willing to undertake to use the most up-to-date standards in their tendering documents? And that is the standards that are concomitant with the prevailing standards of the future days. Now, when I was the Urban Council member, I did ask the Urban Services Department to adopt this kind of attitude in their procurement, say, for example, for computer products. There is a sort of time gap in the implementation of measures, so we have to be mindful of that, and we must require the merchants who are delivering the products to provide the most up-to-date products using the most up-to-date standards, or else we would just be lagging behind all the times. So we want to benefit the consumers. We want to target the product manufacturers in this labeling scheme, and I hope that the government can do more. And members of the public have very low awareness on energy saving. We have done a lot from 2009 up to now. It's been 8 years. In 2016, we are using 14 billion units of electricity on air conditioning in 2016. Of course, we want to lead a more comfortable life. But then, even if you are using air conditioners, you should use more energy-efficient products to reduce carbon emission and footprint. 14 billion units of electricity means an emission of 8.2 million tons of carbon dioxide. So if you can cut 10% of the electricity, then that means a reduction of 820,000 tons of carbon dioxide emission. So can the government do more? Does it suffice to just attach a label? Are there any other measures to encourage people to save electricity? Now, it also has to do with the government's scheme of control agreements with the two electric companies. Can the government include the energy-saving indicators in these agreements so that the two companies can consider more how to save energy? And as a result, people of Hong Kong can change their electricity usage patterns through encouragement by the two power companies, and they can use more energy-efficient home appliances to get down on your electricity usage. I don't want to dwell on climate change too much, but in this global issue, I think Hong Kong is a victim. You see that we are seeing greenhouse effects all over Hong Kong, and actually you can feel that. When Hong Kong was not that affluent in the past, Hong Kong is a much cooler place, but because of the greenhouse or heat island effect, we are seeing a hotter environment, and a lot of heat has been dissipated through air conditioners, and also vehicles on the roads have given out a lot of exhaust air. Maybe this is something that is not under your portfolio, Secretary, but if we want the city can do more in terms of cutting down emissions and reduce carbon emission and carbon footprint, I think we should do more. In fact, we have spent quite an amount. In the last legislative session, we endorsed a sum of $10 billion to replace diesel vehicles, and we are having a 6th generation of vehicles to try to cut down on carbon emission. If air pollution is serious in Hong Kong and we are consuming a lot of energy, and naturally there would be a backfire, and our quality of life will be undermined. And every day we have a serious air pollution problem, and everybody's health is jeopardized. So, in supporting this scheme, I would also like to urge the government to put more efforts.
They need to deal with the synchronization of dealing with energy-saving products. Dr. Fernando Zhang. Thank you, Mr. President. I speak in support of the resolution. This is the third phase of the mandatory energy efficiency labeling scheme. Under this phase, 5 types of products will be included. According to the administration, after the implementation, there will be a reduction of emission of 105,000 tons of CO2 and a saving of about 105 million kilowatt hour. So this will reduce the global warming. It will reduce global warming as well as save energy. The scope of coverage is something we absolutely support because it will let consumers know about the energy performance of products. This will enhance transparency. When selecting products, consumers are given more information. Products will compete with each other to be more energy efficient. This will reduce carbon emission and energy consumption. This will allay global warming. I think the problem is that the scheme itself is too slow because it started in 2008 through CAP 598 Energy Efficiency Labeling of Products Ordinance. There are 3 phases. Phase 1 was in 2009, Phase 2 to 2011, Phase 3 2017. It covers, according to the administration, 70% of household products, 70% of household products. Kam-sing, the secretary, said 2 years ago when he announced the energy saving blueprint 2015 to 2025 plus, he said, every year energy consumption in Hong Kong was spent on energy consumption by 50%, and building consumption accounts for about 90% of such consumption. So there needs to be building energy conservation and green building. That will be our priority. Of course, this scheme will help buildings save energy and reduce carbon emission. But there are more and more digital products, say, for example, smartphones, iPads, electronic games, computers. They are always on standby. Standby burns energy. The EMSD conducted a study saying that for a general household, if they have about a dozen of appliances on standby, it will cause an additional consumption by 3%. So apart from the labeling scheme, it's the duty of the administration to explain and promote as well as educate that when you choose a product, don't just look at the energy efficiency label. Look at products with a low energy consumption standby function. Perhaps this can be included into the labeling scheme as well. I mentioned about what the Secretary said. He said that 90% of energy consumption is related to buildings. When it comes to building energy efficiency, it's rather opaque. Greenpeace published an article. It says that with our energy conservation blueprint, saying that there will be a goal of consumption reduction by 40%, there are no policy targeting building energy consumption because consumption data is not readily available. We can't make comparisons to improve carbon emission from buildings. An officer of Greenpeace said that there are over 50 places in the world that have launched more transparent building energy policies. Say, for example, they require domestic or commercial buildings to report their energy consumption performance, and the information will be made available on a website, and there will be building energy efficiency labels so that when properties are sold or rented, consumers can choose the right property. It's very important. Say in France, whether you buy or rent, according to the size of the property, the rent, locality, and facade, there will be energy efficiency instructions. Apart from household appliances, whether they are consumables or buildings, we also need to pay attention to this. According to a 2016 survey, it showed that commercial consumption accounts for 65.7%, domestic 27.2%. So commercial consumption affects Hong Kong more. It uses about 3 times of the energy used by the domestic sector. Should we consider how to restrict commercial energy consumption? There is a serious energy waste from the commercial sector, light pollution. Well, in Hong Kong, it's our strength to consume and to shop, but do we really need a gigantic display, a gigantic light box, sign box? In Mong Kok, Nathan Road, Causeway Bay, light pollution has reached a level that is unacceptable. Causeway Bay residents living near these gigantic displays said that when they go to the kitchen to do the washing up, they have to wear sunglasses because they are looking at bright light from these displays. It's world news. Some residents, Miss Dr. Zhang, we are about the subcommittee's order. So if you talk about light pollution, you are digressing. Please come back. Yes. Well, when it comes to labeling scheme on domestic products, it will save 105 million kilowatt hour. That's very important. But comparing with commercial consumption, it's a small percentage because commercial sector uses 3 times more energy. So we do need to look at ways to restrict energy consumption. I mentioned light pollution because it has a direct impact. The administration launched an outdoor lighting charter. A lot of work has been put into it to no avail. Say in Causeway Bay, the district councillor said that, well, there are 9 more large outdoor lighting installations since the launching of the charter. So if the administration is determined to promote energy conservation, they have to tackle waste of energy. You can't do it too slowly by covering just a few domestic appliances every time, by requiring them to carry a label. Well, you need to look at the one with the largest consumption. If it is the commercial sector, are there ways to encourage energy conservation? Because the charter clearly doesn't work. When it comes to domestic or household appliances, you introduce this mandatory labeling scheme. Does it really effectively reduce building energy consumption? I also mentioned about the lack of transparency. So if you are determined to do something, the administration needs to do them at the same time instead of just selecting a few electrical appliances. The coverage is small. It now covers 70%. Then why not cover other appliances as well? When it comes to energy conservation, I'd like to say that, well, if Dr. Edward Yim were here, it would have been much better because he is much more conversant when it comes to this topic than I am. There are many ways for residential developments to save energy. He said, well, he lives in Chifu, Fa Yun. He talked about the novel planning model, I don't know the Chinese, saying that it should reach 4 zeros. 0 energy consumption, 0 emission, 0 consumption and on energy, and 0 consumption of water. He has achieved something. In Chifu Fa Yun, well, there are 40 or so programs reducing about 40% of energy consumption, a saving of about $1 million in electricity tariff. Well, it has won an award. So it's not just about regulation by legislation. If on a community level, residents take up the responsibility to promote these initiatives, not just from the perspective of a purchase. If they can live a green life, I don't know, these 4.0 program of Edward Yield can be further promoted.
I hope the government would not just look at specific pieces of legislation, but rather they should provide district support so that they can achieve energy savings. We hope the society as a whole can conserve energy and build bonds. And finally, we must protect our planet and stop global warming. That's our collective responsibility. So I speak in support of the resolution on the energy efficiency labeling products ordinance. Mr. Andrew Wan, good morning. Thank you. I speak on the energy efficiency labeling of products ordinance amendment of Schedule 1 Order 2017. As a whole, I support the resolution. For the previous term administration, some government officials would complain to us privately of their pressure because of political turmoil and governance issues, and very often their policies were criticized. And the Environmental Bureau was relatively immune, and they have generally been popular with the public, and that is thanks to the efforts of the government. For areas such as food waste, energy conservation, and so on, there have been improvements. But as other members have said, we want to do even better. Even though they have generally done their job, but in terms of energy labeling, progress is rather low. And the scope is still too narrow. In 2009, Phase 1 was rolled out to cover 3 types of products, including room air conditioners, refrigerating appliances, not more than 500 watts, and compact fluorescent lamps. Phase 2 was implemented in 2011, and it was fully implemented by September that year. Some washing machines with a rated capacity not exceeding 7 kilograms and dehumidifiers were covered. And for the third phase, well, we had the first and second phases. I don't know why there's such a big gap between the second and third phases. And as other members have said, well, we do support the third phase. Even if you have achieved 70%, that means 30% remains. So what are we going to do with the remaining 30%? For the third phase, you covered more products, including TVs, electric storage water heaters, induction cookers, washing machines, room air conditioners of reverse cycle type, etc. And the wattage of the products covered has been expanded in the third phase. As I said, only 70% of the products are currently covered. When can we achieve full coverage? I hope the government can address that. And why are we progressing so slowly? Would this be relevant to resistance, say, from the business sector? Not a lot of friends from the business sector have spoken, so I wonder if they are going to speak today. Maybe they are supportive, so I do not want to speculate on their intentions. And the public also wonders why the scope of coverage is so narrow. There are appliances with that consume a lot of energy, such as steam irons, heaters, and these are things people would ask. But nonetheless, we did achieve improvements, and this is something we acknowledge. In terms of saving money or energy, we should do something for our planet. We should do something about CO2, carbon footprint, carbon emissions, climate change, money and energy savings. These are all important. Public awareness is also important. At the end, we want to change consumer behavior and build awareness so that everyone can save money and protect our planet. So this is something about education. A lot of numbers have pointed out that measures such as the labeling scheme are very important for the public. And these figures come to a substantial sum. In 2016, the amount of energy spent on air conditioners, they amounted to 14 billion kilowatt hours, equivalent to 8.2 or 1.2 million tons of CO2. My son is in primary school, and he would be taught these concepts. If you tell your kids about these figures, well, the sums would be astronomical to them. So 14 billion kilowatt hours is equivalent to the total power generated by 2 coal-fired plants. So we are looking at the annual output of 2 or 3 generators, and the power generator is only enough to power our air cons, and this is incredible. You asked people not to turn on their air cons, which is very difficult. Hong Kong is hot and humid. It would be hard to ask people not to turn on their air conditioners. So can we make compromise by using alternatives? I'm sure no one would be against it. When we look at the weather trends in recent years, from June to September this year, the average temperature was very high, hovering at 30 degrees. And now the weather is very humid, and a lot of people would turn on their air cons just to make the air drier. So from a community and household perspective, energy labeling is indeed a very good idea, so that the public can save energy and save money. Dr. Fernando Cheung sidetracked a little, but I'd like to elaborate on what he said. What he said was actually relevant. Apart from domestic appliances, business or office equipment such as air cons should also be covered. I'd like to cite an example. Air conditioners on buses in Hong Kong are very strong, and those are not regulated. I realize this is not your goal within this scheme, but if you are willing to cover domestic air conditioners, well, when we visit restaurants, especially chain stores, the air cons are also very strong, and we get sick easily going in and out of these places. Dr. Fernando Cheung talked about the outdoor light boxes, and those working at the central government offices would feel the same. This Halloween, I took my kids to Lan Kwai Fong, and my son said the lights looked beautiful, but it wasn't nice to see at all. Beneath at the foot of IFC, there were a lot of lighting. So there could be other alternatives if you just want to illuminate. Could you be more pragmatic? There's no need to line the whole place with lights. And it was an area, it was a strip 100 meters long, and I wonder how much money or how much energy is consumed throughout the year. If we really care about conservation, shouldn't we be more consistent across different arenas? I hope the Environment Bureau would work on other areas as well. I support the expansion of energy labeling, but we just feel that the progress is rather slow. We hope it can be sped up and the scope can be expanded. The business sector is always complaining that they are subject to different requirements, and this has increased their costs. And this is something I've heard from distributors, and indeed their costs have gone up. But I hope the business sector can also understand that social costs are no less important than operating costs, and because everyone has to suffer. So I hope we can work together to improve our environment. I support this motion and hope that the scheme will be expanded. Mr. Roy Kwong. Good morning, President. Today we are discussing the energy efficiency labeling of products ordinance, and we are at the final straight, and the members are generally all supportive. The mandatory energy efficiency labeling scheme was introduced in 2008, and all prescribed products must carry energy labels to inform consumers of their energy efficiency performance. And this amendment exercise introduces products such as TVs, electric storage water heaters, induction cookers, washing machines with a rated capacity exceeding 10 kg but not exceeding 10 kg, and room air conditioners of reverse cycle type. In other words, the scheme is expanded to cover more common electrical products. I support the resolution because the expansion of the scheme can achieve energy saving of 150 million kilowatt hours and reduction of CO2 emissions by 105,000 tons. So this can save energy and also money for the public. Climate change might sound very distant for Hong Kong, but if we begin with legislation, if we do something from a city level, I'm sure Hong Kong can play a role in mitigating climate change. And if your electrical products have better performance, you can also save money. So that's the idea behind this ordinance. The expansion of meals can cover more electrical appliances, and consumers would be able to know the performances of these products and enhance transparency of information. And this would also enhance business competitiveness. with meals, there would be more and more energy efficient products, and there would be more choices for consumers, and they can choose and compare. They can tell how much savings they can achieve. Such information can inform the consumers of more.
At the same time, I'm concerned also about whether the government will tighten the energy efficiency standards so that consumers can choose the best products, because there can be details which should be further worked out. Maybe we should have subgrades under the different gradings, and there may be more details to be provided on the performance of a certain product under the energy efficiency labeling scheme. In February 1991, the Governor in Council announced that there was this policy, and the Energy Advisory Committee was established in April. In 1991, it provided advice to the government on drawing up the long-term energy efficiency policy. From 1991 up to now, we have done something, but then the progress of our work has been too slow. In 1995, the EMSD launched the voluntary scheme, and it was only in 2009 when the mandatory scheme was put in place. And there will be three phases to cover different products. The first phase covered room air conditioners, refrigerating appliances, and compact fluorescent lamps. In November that year, it was fully implemented. The second phase covered two other products, including washing machines and dehumidifiers. And it was fully implemented in 19th of September. So it's been 6 years down the road. The government decided to implement the third phase. It means the government spent 20 years to expand the scope of the scheme. So how long is 20 years? From 1991 up to now, the pace is just too slow. We want the consumers to get a better understanding. And then Hong Kong should also play a role in combating climate change. We must also make sure that the electricity is put to the best use. So we should be concerned about products in standby modes to promote low carbon living, to reduce carbon emission. We should expand the scope of MEELS to cover more products so that consumers can have more choices. And on top of that, the government should also promote sustainable consumption. And it should not take a cross-the-board approach by asking people to cut down on consumption. What matters most is that the electricity is put to the best use. If we just rely on MEELS and people choose energy-efficient products, that won't suffice. The government should work more on education to enable Hong Kong people to understand the relationship between energy saving and their daily lives. In our daily lives, it's not difficult to save energy. The first thing that comes to mind may be we use less electrical appliances, we use less standby modes, and the EMSD study shows that there are 10 to 20 electrical appliances in a household on standby mode. What do we mean by that? You are not watching TV, but then it's on standby, it's being switched on. And the same goes for the air conditioner, and also you may be switching on the fans all the time. We are no experts, but we must understand that many products come with a standby mode, and in that mode, electricity is still being used. If we shut down all electrical products on standby mode, the electricity consumption in a household can be cut by at least 3%. It doesn't sound too much, but then you can imagine if you turn off the products and you are already saving electricity, and that's the first step in your education effort. And then as more and more Hong Kong people own more and more products, electronic products, and more electric products are put on standby. Normally, now people don't switch off their mobile phones. And in order to promote low carbon living, apart from implementing MEELS, the government should educate Hong Kong people to use products whose standby mode uses less electricity. Even if the products are in standby mode, they will be using only very little electricity. This is something worth looking into. Maybe that mode should also be covered under the MEELS. And it should look into how much money and how much electricity can be saved by that. And at the same time, the Consumer Council earlier tested 14 models of split-type inverter air conditioners and found that all the tested models meet the requirement of Grade 1 rating in energy efficiency. However, the electricity run-up of the samples of the same grade can vary by 20%. In other words, under the same grade, this air conditioner may be using that much electricity, while another one uses a much higher level of electricity, and the tariff can mean a difference of 24%. So can we have more subgrades under the grade? Because there can be a variance of 20% within the same grade. So are we achieving the desired results? The poorest performing brand uses $1,249 per year, while another grade uses only $940 per year. Well, if you can save on that, then that's a good thing. Well, if there is such a great variance of the performance of products in the same grade, so how effective is the system? Now, there are so many different models of split-type air conditioners available in the market. I think, or I suggest that we should further upgrade the standards of the different gradings, and we should promote product development. We should introduce more energy-efficient products. There is such great variance of products, of performance of products in the same grade. Should we have further subgrades among the different grades? Maybe the government offices should consider this more. While energy saving is a big issue, and Hong Kong can take reference from overseas jurisdictions to fully implement such schemes. In France, in property developers, in their pamphlets, all the energy efficiency indicators are listed in the promotional leaflets. Whether you are renting a flat or you are buying a flat, the flat is being accredited by an expert, and the certificate will be presented to the buyers for their reference. And the French people will buy properties based on the location, size, and also the energy efficiency of the flats as well. And this is a big step forward. Now, looking back to Hong Kong, then it's a matter of whether you can whether you can afford the flats. Now, if we have that indicator, then that would be a very good thing. It will serve as an incentive for people to make their flats more energy efficient. If the energy efficiency of their home is very high, then it will be very attractive. Can we model after the French? Can we promote green living, green houses, so that energy efficiency is not just confined to electrical appliances, but also extend to households. This is one of the measures to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement. The electricity used by buildings takes up 90% of all electricity consumed in Hong Kong. It's a major source of carbon emission. We must promote energy efficiency of building, and we must reduce greenhouse gas emission. This is an important task we face. As more clean and renewable energy is being used in Hong Kong, Hong Kong's electricity tariff or bill will go up, and people will be very concerned about electricity consumption, and people will try to select products which are more energy efficient. By this, we can tackle climate change and save money at the same time. This is an indisputable fact, and this is a direction that we are heading towards. Now, in the amendment of this labeling scheme, we have to look at whether it can help consumers to differentiate among different products. Now, I said that for products within the same grade, performance varies so much. So I would like the government to tell us whether they have measures to help consumers to choose energy-efficient products. And, President, on this, the objective of this energy-efficient labeling of products Ordinance Amendment Cap 598, we want to cover more products by the amendment. And what's more important, we want to address climate change. We want to assess the effectiveness of the scheme. We want to have any reduction of CO2 emission of 105,000 tons and achieve an energy saving of 150 million kWh. And we want to reduce 600 million kWh. And then we want to reduce the carbon intensity by 65 to 75% from 2005 to 2030. So I speak. Mr. Gary Chan. President, I speak in relation to the resolution moved on the energy efficiency labeling of products ordinance. I don't think this is a contentious issue. If I remember correctly, I'm the second pro-establishment member to speak on the subject. The first one is the chair of the subcommittee on the subsidiary legislation, and the others are all pro-democracy members. I'm very glad that they are so concerned about environmental protection. I won't impute their motives, and we need an energy label for our products. Now, if we want to save energy, we can filibuster less in the chamber, then we can save energy spent on the lights and air conditioners, and this is something good. The energy label is not something new. We started working on it in 2009. At first, we started out with refrigerators, air conditioners, CFLs, and then we added in the washing machines and dehumidifiers. And then we are now adding in induction cookers, TVs, and water heaters, etc. And yesterday, I noticed that members said that we are not doing enough. Should more be done? Of course, that's no problem. I agree with that. If you don't add to the list, then manufacturers do not have the incentive to produce more energy efficient products. And some products will not come with any energy labels, and consumers don't know how to choose. And if more products are covered, then it's good. And the ordinance can encourage more manufacturers to produce more energy efficient products. And and then we would choose energy efficient products. Our colleagues who try to buy refrigerators and air conditioners for my office, we will be opting for products with good ratings. So the ordinance serves a good purpose. I support this amendment of schedule order.
And the Pan-Democrat said that more items should be covered. That indeed is important. I do notice that during consultation, the administration has indeed done a good job. If I remember right, I think it was 2015 when there was a consultation. Chambers of Commerce, professional groups, power companies, importers, suppliers have all been consulted. That include Consumer Council as well. But it seems that it only covers this part. Well, there are other areas that are not very well done. Well, Undersecretary, you know that it was the Producer Responsibility Scheme for Waste, Electronic and Electrical Equipment. 5 or 6 trucks came to the electrical, and it may cost 100,000 people to lose their jobs. So when you legislate, please don't ask questions on a narrow scope. You need to have a comprehensive consultation. You need to consult all stakeholders. Otherwise, there may be public outcry. So I hope the administration will learn from this experience and use the experience learned on consultations of other environmental issues. Because when it comes to something like this, you will get many supports and you will get just as many objections, because it affects their livelihood, it affects business behavior. A lot of, I think it's a good thing that a lot of the electrical and electronic equipment are not included in this scheme. Mr. Ted Hui, I speak in support of the Energy Efficiency Labeling of Products Ordinance Amendment of Schedule I Order 2017. This is to launch a Phase 3 of the Mandatory Energy Efficiency Labeling Scheme. This is the right direction, and it's an important step. The Secretary said in his speech that the Chief Executive in the policy address set down a goal for carbon emission reduction. It will be reduced by 65% on the basis of 2005 to 70% in 2030. This is quite an aggressive goal. And in 2015, the administration announced Energy Conservation Blueprint 2015 to 2025. It says that by 2025, energy intensity will be reduced by 40%. On a number of occasions, the Secretary has mentioned this, and they have been discussed by members as well. That's the general direction of the administration. Well, coming back to the mandatory labeling scheme, the Secretary said in his speech about a change of behavior that is important. In Phase 1, launched in 2009, it covered air conditioners, refrigerating appliances, and compact fluorescent lamps. Afterwards, there was another amendment of the schedule, and in 2011, the scope was expanded to washing machines and dehumidifiers. We have learned something from these two phases. Consumers, when they choose appliances, they don't just look at the model or the price. They look at energy saved. Then they decide which product to go for. So this time round, the scope will be further expanded by including 5 more types, namely television storage type electric water heaters, induction cookers, room air conditioners of reverse cycle type, and washing machine. We see that after the first and the second phase, the public have now formed a new consumption behavior. Consumers are more aware when it comes to how their daily lives will affect environmental protection and energy conservation. I believe that they will be more inclined to buy energy efficient products. This will be good to our climate, and it will also save money. If they choose more energy efficient product, if we're talking about a change in behavior, it's not just a consumer behavior. If you can change the consumption behavior of the market, then it will change the behavior of suppliers and manufacturers. Will they supply more energy efficient products in the future when these products becomes the trend? Cheaper products that are not energy efficient may be phased out. This is a change in the market and a change in behavior. So we do need to go ahead with phase 3. The administration said that in phase 3, there will be a saving of about 105 million kilowatt hour. For the entire scheme, it will save about 600 million kilowatt hour. So, using the labeling scheme to change consumer behavior. Well, the promotion of recycling and disposal of electronic products, and also product responsibility scheme. You may recall they are also something to do with the environment, and it's about producer responsibility, but it's also about the use of labels for the public to know more about their products, that these products will find a way to be recycled. I proposed an amendment. I think the Secretary may remember. Sticking a label on the product affects the environmental awareness of consumers directly. So, about this mandatory energy efficiency labeling scheme, is about whether consumers know the energy performance of the product. Under the product responsibility scheme, is about whether the public know that the product will be properly disposed of and recycled. They are similar. So in the recycle and proper disposal amendment, I moved a CSA. Well, under this labeling scheme, we say that labeling itself is very important because it's a way for the public to know about the energy performance of the product and whether they will be properly disposed of and recycled. Well, the recycling and the label under the producer responsibility scheme, well, it was about computer, printers, televisions, etc. The administration said that there is no requirement of sticking of label because during consultation, major importers and manufacturers said that there will be technical difficulties because the product may be shipped to different places in the world. So if you require them to have a label stuck on the product at the time of import, that will be difficult. Back to this energy efficiency labeling of products ordinance. The administration said that there was a 3-month consultation. They have had meetings with consumer councils, chambers of commerce, professional groups, education institutions. Of course, it's good for the administration to do comprehensive consultation, but when it comes to sticking of labels on products, for the sake of recycling and energy conservation, consultation is important. More work needs to be done to strike a balance between the right to know by consumers and the operations in the trade. Well, you say that the sticking of label can be done under the labeling scheme, but it can't be done under the producer responsibility scheme. I find that quite puzzling. When a person goes to a shop, you can look at a label to know how energy efficient that product is, but you can't find a label stating the information when it comes to disposal and recycling. I hope that the administration will use more time to explain to manufacturers or importers so that they will better adapt to our policies. In the Secretary's speech, he said that energy consumption is an important initiative to allay global warming. That's why the administration set down goals. Goals are set. Can they be achieved? Of course, it depends on whether the administration is determined to implement policies and whether the public will change their behavior, because we're talking about climate change. Climate change may be an abstract concept to the public that is far away from them, but we see the impact of climate change. According to the International Meteorology Organization, last year there was a record of global warming last year because the sea level was a record low and heat intensity has been increasing, and in 2017 the world, including Hong Kong, feel that the weather has gone to an extreme. In March, on the International Meteorological Day, it was announced that there was a statement announced. Information in the report has been confirmed by various meteorological organizations. Because of human behavior, there was climate change. It's something real. It's not far away. is strongly supported by scientific evidence. So apart from implementing policies, the administration should do more on education and publicity. Back to the labeling scheme. Energy conservation is the goal.
我希望政府亦都參考咧世界外地。
I hope the government would make reference to other international practice and their objectives. I can offer a few examples for reference. For the US and European Union, the US's total energy consumption amounts to 16.3 tons of fuel, and there's a breakdown between different departments or agencies. And in the U.S., they have major energy efficiency policies, including Climate Action Plan. It was promulgated by former President Barack Obama, and the target is to double the efficiency by 2030 in order to mitigate climate change. And there are three main components. First, to crack down on carbon emissions, and two, climate change preparedness, and three, mitigating global climate change. And there are specific measures cited. And there are similarities and differences. First of all, reduce domestic, office, and industrial wastage. And by 2020, energy efficiency would be raised by 20%. And for the federal energy efficiency standards, in 3 years, CO2 emissions will be reduced by 3 billion tons, etc. So these are similar as us. I hope the government could make reference to that. I remind members that 18 members have already spoken on this motion. Please focus on the motion on the energy efficiency labeling of products. Ordinance, climate change might not be directly relevant. Does any other member wish to speak? Dr. Helena Wong. Thank you, Madam Deputy. I speak in support of the Energy Efficiency Labeling of Products Ordinance Amendment of Schedule 1, Order 2017. Thank you for the timely reminder of what we are discussing now. But members can decide what to say, so the President cannot interfere with the content of our speeches. Madam Deputy, we know that in the 2016 policy address, the administration promised to expand the mandatory energy efficiency labeling scheme to cover more electrical products. And the scheme has been in place for years. And for the current exercise, we are expanding the scope of coverage. I was not involved in the Bills Committee, but I do understand the function of energy labels. I've been following up on food safety issues as well as the safety of drinking water. For food, water supply components or water taps, etc. For food and water safety, or even energy efficiency labeling, for consumers, are there readily available information so that they can make their purchase choices if they are concerned about the environment, if they, the impacts of global warming can be catastrophic. If the public wants to contribute, they can simply choose less energy consuming appliances that can still serve their functions. But very often consumers only see the price when they make purchases, and very often they wouldn't know about their energy efficiency. So these labels can help consumers make informed choices. The objective of energy efficiency labeling is simple, and that is out of concern towards global warming. Madam Deputy might have heard from a number of members already, but we really need to know why we need such labeling scheme. For businessmen, they might be annoyed whenever we talk about food safety and whether there should be labels. Would the salts, sugar, fats, or saturated fat contents are too high, there would be objections from certain members from the business sector, including Mr. Tommy Chung, because they feel that this is an extra burden for them. But we should not be so nearsighted. And the energy efficiency labeling is the same. We have to be more forward-looking. It's not like it will be the end of the world if we do not have labeling, but if we don't start sooner, climate change would become irreversible. And there are many reasons that contribute to climate change. There are natural factors, and those have led to temperature rises, and there are also human factors. And we cannot dictate what would happen in nature, and these factors include the movement of the sun and volcanic eruptions. For the sun, since it's a living body, it's not dead. The sun is a living thing. It has a direct compass on the temperature of the earth, and if the sun is active, the cold polar airs will be reduced, and the areas with human habitation would increase. But the sun is not that active all the time. Very often it would be dormant, so to speak, or relatively inactive. And science tells us that sometimes there would be eruption-like activities in the sun, and in some cases the temperature of habitated areas would go up. As for volcanic eruptions, they are difficult to predict. Some are dormant volcanoes, and they would, with eruptions, global warming would be worsened, and they would emit some particles which would affect solar reflections, and those would lead to short-term cooling. And the UNFCCC, or the Framework on Climate Change, and they define climate change as the change to the composition of the atmosphere due to human activities. Most scientists believe that human factors are the main contributors to climate change. I talked about the sun's movement and volcanic eruptions. Those are natural factors. But according to the UN, it is human factors that also contribute to global warming. So that leads us to think about what kind of human factors are contributors. So we would ask questions like whether we are burning fossil fuels. When we burn fossil fuels, a lot of carbon dioxide would be emitted, and the Earth's temperature will continue to rise. Meanwhile, deforestation would also affect the planet's capacity to absorb CO2. So given such effects, there would be a lot of extra greenhouse gases, including CO2, in our atmosphere. And a lot of studies in recent years pointed out that the ozone is getting thinner and thinner, and it can no longer block out UV rays. So there would be a series of effects which would affect global weather. So as members of this planet, we should look to reduce carbon emissions, and we should try to produce less CO2, which contribute to rise in temperature, and everyone has a role to play. Hong Kong has taken part in saving our planet, and we have tried to reduce carbon emissions. And in Hong Kong, we have a mandatory energy efficiency labeling scheme, and there are several phases. The first phase was implemented in November 2009, and as is typical for the government, they were very conservative in the beginning, and in November 2009, meals only applied to 3 prescribed products, including room air conditioners, refrigerating appliances, and compact fluorescent lamps, or what we call energy-saving bulbs. And the cooling capacities were stipulated. And by 2011, in September, Phase 2 was implemented. And the scope was expanded to include washing machines with a rated washing capacity not exceeding 7 kilograms, and dehumidifiers. The dehumidifying capacity must not exceed 35 liters per day. Now we are planning for the third phase. The government proposes to cover 5 additional types of products, including televisions, electric storage water heaters, induction cookers. And induction cookers have become popular in recent years. 10 years ago, we did not have a lot of such cookers. Now they are being included. And also room air conditioners of reverse cycle type, that is with both heating and cooling functions, and washing machines as well. And included in the exercise this time televisions, electric storage water heaters, etc. And another order would be submitted to also include room air conditioners of reverse cycle type. Meals were first implemented in 2009, but public awareness is still relatively weak. So the Environment Bureau must do more on public education to remind consumers how to interpret those energy labels, and more should be done on enforcement. You must make more inspections for compliance on energy labeling.
According to some Green Group's statistics, they have actually looked at how the law has been enforced. In 2016, Hong Kong's people's electricity consumption on air conditioners is 14 billion units, and translating into carbon emission of 2.8 million tons. Hong Kong is very hot, and in several months of the year we have been spending a lot on air conditioning, and the government is even saying that it will shoulder the electricity bill for schools. How can you make students stay focused when attending classes and teachers will not sweat too much? Well, the schools are turning on the air conditioners and they are asking the students and the parents to pay. So what we mean by free education doesn't include air conditioning charges. And in this policy address, Mrs. Carrie Lam finally heeded to the views of the Professional Teachers Union. I must declare that I am from the Pt2 as well. Dr. Wong, you have digressed. Please come back. Well, I have not digressed. It's just that you left and you just stepped in. Just now, I was explaining that the natural factors and the human factors for global warming, and I have also talked about the phased development of the MEELS. President, the situation now is not so desirable, so for myself and the DP, we would fully support the Energy Efficiency Labeling of Products Ordinance Amendment of Schedule I Order 2017. I hope other members will do the same. As I said, we implemented the MEELS in 2009, but then in 2016, Green Group surveys found that we are using a lot of electricity. So I have not digressed. But the question is, if we add in more electrical products to the schedule, is it enough? Of course, it will not help save our planet or eliminate the global warming problem. I hope that the ENB can continue to step up its efforts in enforcing the law and do more education to ensure that everyone knows about these energy labels and makes the best use of them and make the wisest choices in the purchase of products. Mr. Eddie G. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the motion on the Energy Efficiency Labeling of Products Ordinance, and many members have talked in detail about the resolution. And in other words, we will add in a few more products in the third phase. And in my speech, I would like to look at the issue from 3 angles. I'll try to analyze the MEELS. Some fellow members said the pace has been too slow and it's not been effective. What do I mean by that? And secondly, I would like to look at the role of MEELS in the overall picture in terms of energy saving. And also, thirdly, we are talking about energy labels for household products. What more can we do to enhance people's energy conservation awareness? First, many members said that EMSD had started the voluntary scheme in 1999 and is now 22 years down the road, and we are having the third phase now. A total of 10 products are currently covered, so the pace seems to be too slow. President, we should not just say it's slow because we've taken up 22 years to work on it. No. This is a policy instrument. We have to look at the logic. We can draw reference from the EU experience. It was only in the early 90s, in the last century, that EU, Mr. Eddie G, we are now looking at the energy efficiency labeling of products. We're not having a debate on energy efficiency as a whole, and it states clearly that there are these 3 products. So please don't expand your discussion to such a wide scope. If you want to say something about energy efficiency, take it up at other platforms. President, I'm not speaking on a wider scope. I think the government's paper sets out the wide scope as well. If you look at the government's paper, it talks about the implementation of the third phase, and it says that there can be an annual reduction of CO2 emission of 105,000 tons, and there will be energy saving of around 150 million kilowatts per year. So these are the figures given out by the government. So we can talk about whether the latest addition of 3 products is effective, and we can also talk about the overall efforts put in by the government in energy saving and how effective they have been. So I think this is, reasonable discussion here. And Hong Kong people can better understand from such discussion. The Secretary has spoken clearly on these aspects. I don't need to quote from his speech anymore. He has quoted from the Energy Saving Plan for Hong Kong's Built Environment 2015 to 2025 plus. So let's not limit the scope of our discussion to the 3 to 5 products. So, President, I hope that you can allow me to continue. As I said, I hope that fellow members the public can understand how the policy operates. You have this mandatory energy labeling scheme. It actually imposes pressure on the manufacturers progressively. We have 5 grades, and for EU they have 7 to 10 grades. And once there is a grading system in place, the manufacturers have to do something. Well, the higher the grading, the greener it is, the product is. So the manufacturers are incentivized to produce more grade 1 products. And for the EU, we're talking about A+, etc. grading. And then on that basis, the government can put pressure on the manufacturers on 2 fronts. First, this is what the government has been doing in Hong Kong, and that is in relation to grade 1. The scope will be progressively narrowed. Some members have referred to the fact that the Consumer Council has conducted a survey, and that there is a great variance in the performance of grade 1 air conditionings among the different products. So if all these are considered as grade 1, then the government may be lenient on some of the products. So we have to narrow down on the scope of the grade 1 rating. So the first aspect. The second aspect is the EU has been progressing much faster than we do. We should ban the sale of high energy consuming products starting from 2014. Those vacuum cleaners with 1,600 volts will be banned, and the voltage has also been narrowed down, and we talk about 1,600 watts, and it will be reduced progressively to 900 watts. So this is all in a package, a total package. If you look at the EU experience and we examine what Hong Kong is doing, then we see that the government has indeed made some progress in its overall package. The number of products, the types of products covered has been expanded. As for there has been also been adjustment in the standards, the lifting of the standards for the ratings. But if we compare ourselves against EU, we don't cover vehicles. That is particularly mentioned by Mr. Jeremy Tam. We don't have ratings for buildings. We notice that EU also covers car tires, whether it's in standards on noise emission and also use of fuel. There are standards covering those as well. So we can definitely do more. In terms of the scope of the rating, whether we should be narrow down the standards or narrow down the scope of the rating. Hong Kong has been progressing slowly compared to EU, so I hope that the government can expedite its work. And the third thing, that is the crux of the issue, whether as a next step, apart from including more products and tightening the standards, whether we would be considering banning the import and sale of high energy consuming products. If you don't have an entire package, well, it's very typical of Hong Kong policies where we have some of what other jurisdictions are doing, but we're always not doing enough. And one of the reasons is that we will not present Hong Kong people with the whole picture. This is what I want to say more on. Now, the government says that 5 products will be added: TVs, water heaters, induction cookers, air conditioners of reverse cycle type washing machines. And they said that if we add in these 5 products, there will be an annual reduction of CO2 emissions of 105,000 tons, and there will be an annual energy saving of 150 million kilowatts per year. That doesn't mean a lot to Hong Kong people. They don't know how to look at the figures. Well, you said that you accuse the Hong Kong government of acting too slowly, but what do we mean by that? Oh, that carries only meaning if we have the full picture. And then we will be made to understand the effectiveness of addition of these 5 products. I would like to give you an overall picture. 150 million units of electricity saved. What does it mean? Every year, Hong Kong's total electricity consumption is some 40 billion units of electricity. So that means a saving of 0.3%. And starting from 2009 and including the latest exercise, there will be an annual saving of 600 million units of electricity per year. So that is tantamount to around 1% only. So we can see how the labeling system has fared so far. As for carbon emission, we want the government, every time when it launches such measures, when it mentions about energy-saving measures, reminds the public what Hong Kong's responsibilities and targets are. And if we want to achieve that target, what is the contribution of the proposed measures? And after reading through the Secretary's speech and browsing through the websites, the relevant websites, it's not that easy for me to take out a figure a clear figure on how the current proposals will contribute to the reduction of carbon intensity by 65 to 70% by 2030 compared with the 2005 level. What is the contribution to that target? I don't know.
2017年
For 2017, there is an announcement comparing 2014 with 2015. We have made great progress. We have reduced 3.4 million tons of CO2, equal to 7.55% back to 1985 level. So that is a comparison of 2015 to 2014, because we have used more. We have reduced about 3.4 million tons of carbon. Comparing that to the 105,000 tons under phase 3, you will get an idea that, when the two power companies switch more to natural gas, then they will be able to reduce carbon by about 1/3. Can I hear from the administration the whole picture? Because this is just about electrical appliances labeling scheme. Can the administration tell us? There are now 3 phases. In the future, there will be a time when this scheme is completed. Can they tell us how much contribution this scheme will have made? And how much carbon can we reduce by tons as a whole? And I'd like to say, lastly, household appliances are used inside a home. When I look at my electricity bill, it only tells me how much I have to pay and how much in kilowatt hour I have used. After I have purchased these energy efficient products, how much better as a result have I done? When I go to the EMSD, the calculations are quite perfunctory. Say, for example, these are the appliances and then that's the energy consumption. Work it out yourself. There is no tailor-made calculators. Say, if you use this product, then you use this amount. And children can monitor parents what products they buy, and goals can be set by households to do more. Thank you. Mr. Ray Chan. Thank you, Mr. President. This morning we speak on the Energy Efficiency Labeling of Products Ordinance Amendment of Schedule I Order 2017. We have this very meaningful debate. We are aware that amendment of Schedule I is to include television, storage type, electric water heaters, induction cookers, air conditioners, and washing machines. As the Secretary said, that the Chief Executive has set a new carbon emission reduction goal in the 2017 report. It will be by 65 to 70% in terms of energy intensity to 2030. I hope that the Secretary will understand. Well, he said in his speech that encouraging change of behavior is an effective way. And in order to enhance consumer awareness, starting from 2008, we have put in place this scheme. Since 2008, the mandatory labeling scheme was launched. Television was not one of those products. It's been 9 years. We're in 2017. Finally, televisions are included under the mandatory labeling scheme. Of course, better late than never. This is a very good opportunity because the role played by televisions has changed a lot compared to 2008. In our lives, well, I have not done any scientific research. We leave the television on longer than before. Yes, the viewing rates of television stations have dropped, but we have used the television more. So if we use energy efficient televisions, it will save energy, it will reduce carbon emission. It will better equip us to face the challenges of climate change. Well, a lot of televisions comes with an inbuilt set-top boxes or some hard disk for recording. You can use television to surf on the internet, to sync with your mobile phone, and sometimes in some households computers are linked with the television, so you can use your television like a computer. You don't have to go to your study. So yes, traditional television stations have seen viewing dropped, but we use more television. Therefore, energy efficiency of television is very important. If TVs are energy efficient, we will use less energy. Technology has improved. Our televisions now are better than those analog, old, bulky ones. 70 to 80% of households have got flat TVs. Now that televisions are covered in the labeling scheme, manufacturers of television sets will be more inclined to produce more energy-efficient products. But we are slower than other places. Vietnam, back in 2014, included televisions under the mandatory labeling scheme, and in 2015, they do not allow products lower than the minimum energy efficiency set to enter or produced in the country. Why? I want to ask, why just television sets? What about peripheral products? I'm quite disappointed. Set-top boxes. There are many different set-top boxes available in the market with multi-functions. Some can record programs, some can surf on, some can be connected to the internet, some can view pay TV. Well, if you touch the set-top box, you know that it's quite hot. Television stations remind you to turn the set-top box off because you can reboot the set-top box, you can update your system, but very few manufacturers of set-top boxes join the voluntary scheme. So I advise the administration to cover set-top boxes under the scheme to encourage the manufacturers to produce more energy efficient products. Perhaps the administration thinks that set-top boxes is a transitional product. There will be more and more TV sets come with inbuilt set-top boxes. Well, if you buy set-top boxes from the mainland, you can view television programs all over the world, so they still exist. Another one is monitors. How's it different from TV sets? I don't see the difference. Sometimes monitors are left on longer than TVs, but monitors are not included in the mandatory scheme. Well, EEI on television can be applied to monitors. EEI is based on 10 minutes of turning the TV on using and calculate the voltage used, and then divided by 20 volt plus the dimensions times 4.3224 watt. So the formula is to find out the correlation between the size of the monitor and its electricity consumption. So it's more or less the same as televisions. So I asked the administration to cover monitors as well. TV sets are covered. I asked the administration to do more work on 3 areas. First, to take the initiative to require government departments and statutory organizations to procure grade 1 television sets. Well, sometimes when it comes to legislation, the government is always exempted. I hope that the administration will do it voluntarily. 2, to increase manpower of EMSD and to conduct random checks on television sets. 3, to teach the public how to use televisions properly. Well, in the past, grannies will leave the radios on all through the day and night. Now, well, with round-the-clock news, grannies will leave the television on all day and night and not even look at the television. It's only when the electricity bill comes that they realize that the tariff has increased a lot after they have subscribed pay TV, and that is because these granny and granddads have left televisions on all day and all night. So we need more public education. Statutory organizations are one of the biggest purchases, say for example, of television. Say for example, the HA will have televisions to display, say for example, your order at the dispensary and also in wards. So the administration said that $200 billion will be given to the HA for hospital expansion. So there will be more television bought. So if HA is required to buy grade 1 products, it will save their expenditure. On top of that, there are secondary and primary schools. In every classroom there is a television. So can the administration require schools to procure grade 1 television sets only? Televisions is included in the mandatory scheme. The administration has the responsibility to make sure that the performance of televisions are always compliant with grade 1 standard. So EMSD manpower should be increased to increase the number of inspections conducted on televisions in the market to ensure that their energy performance reflects the information on the label. What I like to ask the administration to do is that television sets of different energy performance should be differentiated. Currently, there are 5 grades. Well, grade 1 is less or equal to 0.4 EEI. If we look at EU, you see that our grading is too simple. For EU television, the calculation of energy consumption, energy efficiency is the same, but there are 10 grades. Lowest is G, F, E, D, C, B, A. A plus and A plus plus and A plus plus plus. EEI 0.4 in Hong Kong is grade 1. In EU is grade B. So there is still A plus, A triple plus, and A double plus and triple plus.
So it doesn't belong to the most energy efficient class in Hong Kong's classification system. Whether for 0.4 or 0.1 EEI, they all belong to grade A, but grade 1. But the EU system is more meticulous, and the information provided is clearer for the consumer, and their consumers can choose truly energy efficient TVs. In May, the Consumer Council sampled 14 HP air conditioners, and for the same model, the difference in annual energy consumption amounted to 24% or $300. I don't want to diverge into TVs, but I want to say that after incorporating TVs in the labeling scheme, deficiencies in the classification system might lead to consumers failing to save electricity. So I hope the government can introduce the EU energy labeling system as soon as possible so that consumers can choose more energy efficient TVs. So your work is not done. I do not know when you will introduce a 10 class system, and induction cookers are also included in the scheme, which is very much welcome. Induction cookers have become more popular, and the technologies have also matured. A lot of people now cook with induction cookers. For example, those living in subdivided flats, they in some premises, open fire cooking is not allowed. So we can see that induction cookers will only become more and more popular. So all induction cookers to be sold in Hong Kong should carry labels, and this is certainly one improvement. Hopefully the government can work among different departments in order to refine your policy. We now face a temporary solution, and we are not saying that we will object to it, but we hope the government can make some promises. According to Rule 40(1) of the Rules of Procedure, I propose adjournment to the proceedings of this motion, and I will explain my justifications. Mr. Ray Chan proposes a motion to adjourn debate of this motion. We will first deal with the motion. Mr. Ray Chan, please speak on your motion. Thank you.